Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Lazy Girl's Guide to Podcasting. I am so excited. It is the week of New Year, and as a little New Year's gift, I have got a wonderful guest lined up for you today. We've got Chris from Podtastic Audio. Chris, I'm going to hand over to you. Please tell us who you are and also about your wonderful podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be here, joining you all the way from not so sunny San Diego, California. It's actually raining today as the day we record this. Storm came out of nowhere. But I've been in podcasting for maybe 4 years or so. I started my original podcast with my wife, Christine. We were just dating at the time. And I said, hey, let's try a podcast because my son had like an Xbox game system and he had one of those like headset players that you plug right into the console. You can like talk to your friends and stuff while you play the game. I ordered him one. It came in the mail. I plugged it into my computer at the time, and I was like playing with the thing. And I'm like, wait a second, I might be able to do a podcast with this stupid thing, you know? And I'm like, hey, Christine, let's do a podcast. She's like, I don't know. I'm too busy. I don't want to do a podcast. I'm like, come on, it'd be so much fun. And she's like, okay, we'll just try it out and see if we like it. And I went on Amazon, bought a few cheap microphones and started tinkering around with that. And we got a few episodes going, and we actually got some positive feedback come back to us like after the first, second episodes. And I was like, whoa, people actually say it's great. They say we're doing a good job. And I didn't think it was that great. I thought it was like total amateur hour, you know? We didn't know what we were doing. And I was playing with it and getting better. And I just started doing all kinds of research on how to do a podcast, how to make it better. And also without having to spend tons of money, because that's the thing. You can spend thousands and thousands of dollars on this stuff, or you can spend a few bucks and get basic stuff like we did. We eventually upgraded to different gear. We eventually upgraded, and then we upgraded to having guests on the show and different things, and it kind of evolved from there. And then during the time when I think it was middle of 2020, like deep in the heart of the pandemic, when like everybody and their mother had a podcast or started a podcast, I got people asking me, like, how did you do it? Like, how are you making your show so great? Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I guess I could maybe do some consulting or things or coaching. I'm like, I ain't got time for that. Maybe I'll just like on my own free time, I'll make a second podcast kind of walking through what we've done on the other podcast. And that's where Podtastic Audio came from. And that's how I do Podtastic Audio now. It's kind of evolved since then. But basically, it's behind the scenes of podcasting on the show that we were doing before. We kind of still are. We're taking a little break right now, but basically it's all things podcasting and podcasting stuff. That's basically what Podtastic Audio is all about.
I love that. First of all, I have to say, I hate the fact that you said that it's raining because I'm from Britain. So I just picture anywhere in California to be sunny 100% of the time.
Normally what it is, and I think it's getting sunnier today. I don't know if you can see out the window, but it's actually the sun broke about an hour ago, and last night it was kind of clear, and then it started dumping rain on me last night, and I took a video of it, and it was like pouring, almost like a hurricane. It came out of nowhere. It was like windy. No. I felt the wind picking up, and all of a sudden this rain started just coming in sideways on me, and I was soaking wet. Man, working in the rain is horrible.
Oh, that's awful. That's awful. I feel for you. I really do. But I am so excited for you to be here today because we are going to be talking all about doing audio only podcasts. And we were chatting a little bit before we hit record, all about how there's such a push, or there seems to be such a push at the moment, I feel, to do video podcasts, you know, for YouTube, for, you know, all the social aspects. But I don't always do audio. Well, I don't always do audio. Obviously, I have audio. It's a podcast. I don't always do video. A lot of the time I do audio only. And I know that you quite often do audio only. So I'd love to know a little bit more about that. Where does that choice or decision kind of come from to focus more on the audio rather than audio and video, for example?
Well, I think for me, I'm just talking personally from my perspective, I've had a big radio background. Like I've listened to more audio via like radio, satellite radio, regular radio. Radio stuff has been always in the forefront of my life since I've been a kid for the most part. You know, I grew up very poor. We didn't have like multiple channels on TV. We had a few channels. One of them was just a Fuzzy Snow and like a couple networks and stuff. So, and then of course YouTube. I didn't grow up on YouTube either. So it was all about the radio and commuting far to work and commuting far to school. Podcasting wasn't around, of course. So all we had was those morning talk shows, or you guys like to call breakfast shows. And they had the night shows I'd listen to. There was like the call-in shows. I love the call-in shows because it'd be like the host would be talking about something. The callers would call in. They'll give advice. I love that kind of stuff, And when you actually have the video part of it all, you kind of remove the element of knowing, like, or at least thinking what the people on the show look like, what the room they're in, what they're talking about. There is the theater of the mind, which you kind of remove when you see a video. You don't have that, you don't have that in your idea of what it's supposed to be like. So I've always loved radio. I was on radio in college back a long time ago, and I've always loved all things audio. So when it came to doing an audio podcast, I always thought of it as like another version of radio, which is what I was well familiar with. I love radio, love audio, and the idea of radio. Side note about radio is that I was such a fan of radio, but it kind of almost burst my bubble, almost like telling kids Santa Claus doesn't exist, is because I found out with radio, a lot of the radio stuff you hear, I'm not sure how it is in Britain, but here, a lot of it is pre-recorded. A lot of it is not live, and a lot of it is, they call it, voice tracking is what they call it. There's a term called voice tracking. So basically, a lot of the stations here in America are closed on the weekend, and they're closed after like 5 p.m. It's all pre-recorded stuff, all set out in a timeline, and it makes it sound like the DJ is there, tracking a song or something. But it's all pre-recorded stuff they did during the week that they just put up there, and it's on autopilot.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and the same thing with like one thing, the morning shows that I used to love listening to, they would say, "Oh, it's 7:00 hour. We have guest so and so. There's some big celebrities coming on the show." They always push it on the 7:00 hour, and I always kind of thought that was odd. And the reason why is the 7:00 hour in the morning is like the busiest time. People are on the road listening to the radio during the 7:00 hour. Great, but I'm thinking, did you really interview the big major celebrity at 7 in the morning? I don't know if they'd be up that early. Would they be? I don't know. I think a lot of those are actually pre-recorded interviews. They just slot in, make it seem like it's live, make it appear like it's a whole live thing. So a lot of that stuff's all like, I wouldn't say it's fake, but it's just a lot of like, it's almost like a podcast, but just put in a live time slot. So I've always liked everything audio related for that part. So I did the podcast, audio, no brainer. I did YouTube before, like years and years ago, but the YouTube videos I ever did were like outside doing stuff, like taking the kids to the zoo, taking the kids to the park, going to Disneyland, going to Disney World, going to the beach, going snorkeling. Like those are the kind of videos that I would shoot and I would watch. So when it comes to like video versus audio, that's kind of where I kind of see video. But I know like video like this and, video for podcasting, when it comes to video, I was thinking about this the other day. Video, you can do more with a video podcast. Like visually, you can do more. You can show graphics of whatever you're talking about. You can show clips of whatever you're talking about. If we're reviewing a movie or something, or a clip from a movie, you can show a scene from that movie. Or you can, show charts and all kinds of graphs. You can physically show that stuff on the screen. You can go very interactive with a video podcast. Not saying everybody does that. Some people just do the talking head stuff. Listen, if it's talking head, you don't need that because you can do it audio only. And you do not have to do video. Everyone says, you got to do video. You do not have to do video. Now, with audio, you can do more with less. That's the difference really between the video and the audio, is that with audio, I can pretend that, like I do this sometimes, I'll pretend that you are here in the same room with me. And because there's no video element, the audience has no idea. They have no idea that we're not hanging around, or we can pretend that we're hanging around a park or the beach or wherever. There's so much more things you can do with audio because there's that element of the theater of the mind. The listener has to imagine where you are and what you're physically doing. You can be on the moon for all you know, and they can't see it. Oh, you're telling them that. And if you bring in sound elements and soundscaping, then it can appear to the audience, to the listener. You could be anywhere doing anything.
I love that. That reminds me a lot of, I don't know if you guys have this in the States at all, but over here you have like stories for radio, which kind of come in series or whatever. And yeah, it's like the acting on the radio. And I love that because it, like you said, it's the power of the mind, isn't it? It's the theatre of the mind just creating all of this imagery, and it really can take you anywhere. And it's funny what you were saying as well about video, because I often think that with video you almost need to be camera ready, or this idea of being camera ready, whereas one of the things that I love about audio only podcast is that I can literally have an idea for an episode, go upstairs, turn the microphone on, start recording, and I don't have to care about what I'm wearing or how I'm looking or my backdrop or anything like that. And do I look on brand? It's just I'm just gonna go and throw the ideas.
Well,
throw the ideas out there.
you look absolutely lovely, by the way.
Oh, bless you. It's 9 o'clock at night. I'm going to disagree, but I appreciate the sentiment.
Yeah, well, you just say roll out of bed this way. It look great, you know. So, but yeah, video is great for lots of different things. I think also too the competition is stiff with video. If you go on YouTube, you look at some of the best videos or YouTubers that just do the stationary, like at a desk doing a video. They do it so well. Lots of great lighting, great cameras. We're talking thousands and thousands of dollars on a backdrop. I think there's one podcast that I kind of watch their YouTube clips. I don't subscribe to them, but I watch them it'll pop up. I think I subscribe to them on YouTube. Anyways, they have like the whole round table desk set up. It was like 4 people on one side, 4 people on the other side. And the desk kind of comes in a corner, beautiful backdrop, almost like a soundstage studio. I think it's like a studio with, I think they've got 4 or 5 cameras because each person has a camera on each one. Plus they got a wide shot camera. Plus they have the best gear, the best everything. It looks great. And, and they got celebrities in person doing the roundtable stuff. That's more of like a talk show, kind of thing. But for the most of us average indie podcasters, we're going to be doing like the Zoom show or this thing or whatever. It's going to be this kind of style. It's not going to be you hanging out with me in the same room. Oh, that would be cool. But it's, I think that's where video really makes a big difference. I know, I guess I know StreamYard and lots of other cool tools out there, Ecamm Live, they can do lots of cool things. I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying that if you're going to do video, you got to do video. You got to go in. You got to make it amazing. You got to compete with all of those other shows. Plus, I think about this too, is that you're also competing with every other visual format content in the planet. We're talking Netflix, Disney Plus, movies, television, everything you physically can watch, you are now competing directly against if you go solely video only. So
it's so true. And then it's also the editing of it as well. I don't know.
Oh God,
somebody
don't even
actually asked me. Yeah, someone asked me recently. They were like, "How do you feel about editing audio versus video?" And I was like, "Audio, I love it. It doesn't bother me whatsoever." I said, "Video, for some reason, I just find it a slug, and I don't know why." But you're right. There's so much competition, and if you're doing video, like you said, you've got to be, because we're so used to seeing these amazing productions, and we know that like Amazon Prime, Netflix, they throw millions upon millions at their shows now. Like the production budgets is just crazy numbers. And you're right, you're trying to capture people's attention and take them away from this really elite content and focus on you, which is great, but it's such a competition. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, it's hard, and one thing I love about audio versus video is that audio, I have to say, is probably the only content that ever would exist that you can physically consume doing anything else.
100% agree with you.
You can't do that with video. You can't do it with reading a book. I mean, try driving a car and reading a book at the same time. Try watching YouTube and driving a car. You can't do that, but you can consume audio. That's one thing I love about audio. It's so portable. It's so consumable that you can literally consume it doing anything else, anywhere you are in the world. And it's fantastic. The only problem with audio is that you can't physically show stuff. Like, hey, check me out. Check out the shirt I'm wearing. Check out this thing I'm doing. Here I am painting this painting. See what it looks like. You can't really I mean, I guess if you're really clever with your way you describe things, you might be able to describe things very well. Sometimes most of us don't describe things as well as we should, especially with audio podcasting. And that's one thing I noticed with like I know when Christine and I do a podcast, and we'll be saying things, and she'll actually correct me, and I'll say something. Let's see this thing here, like this, like, and she's like, Chris, nobody can see that. We're audio podcast, so you have to describe that. What Chris is showing you, what Chris is describing is this and stuff like that. So you have to be mindful of the audio listening audience if you're doing a Zoom or video style of a show, just because not everyone is physically watching it. And I think you said earlier, was the stats on that was the people that
80%.
80% people are actually
Yeah.
consuming the audio
Yep.
over video. Yeah, I mean, and also audio, like video, especially you're getting to like, if you get into like 4K video and like high end res video, now you're talking like a lot of like data and a lot of like bandwidth and stuff. You can still push the boundaries of bandwidth even with audio, because like you can go like super high quality, wave file formats, and literally like one podcast would fill up someone's phone because it's so massive with the highest quality audio possible. That can't happen. You also have to be aware of your audience, and hopefully you're making a show for them, not for funsies. I mean, it can be fun too, but you want to make sure you serve your ideal listener.
Yeah, I think that's so important because, going back to the stats, I haven't conducted these stats myself, but I have read in several different places that it's around 80% of podcasters who don't do video and do audio only, which I always find really interesting because I just find that everybody talks about video constantly. But I think, to your point, it's about knowing your audience, because I often think, well, when do I listen to podcasts? On the commute or when I'm doing the washing up, something like that. So like you said, I'm doing something as I'm consuming the content. Well, I can't watch that at the same time or hold the book open and what have you. And, there's some other really interesting stats around the majority of Americans and Canadians will listen to podcasts on the commute. So again, it's easier to listen to things than it is to watch something as you're running up and down for the trains and what have you. So, like you said, it's about knowing your audience and who is your audience and where are they consuming, and how are they consuming as well. And I think that's a really, really valid point. You've got to know your audience, because if they're more interested in video, then maybe that is something you need to explore. But equally, if they are listening in a way which is only giving them the opportunity to listen as opposed to watch as well, then, that's probably going to tell you how you need to generate your content as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you have the ability to do both, I say go ahead and try both. I know you do both sometimes, and I know you do some audio stuff too, and video, but you also mainly, you got the video stuff going too at the same time. And that's fine because you're kind of serving, both audiences. People think that like, oh, just because I put the video version out doesn't mean they're going to listen to it on the audio. It's the audio side. There's two different sides to the coin here. People love video; they'll stick to YouTube and watch, or even listen on YouTube. People, it's all they know is YouTube. It's all they know. And then there are other people who know how to use a podcast player app, things like that. Like, try and tell an old person how to use a podcast player app. It's kind of hard, but you tell them, go to YouTube. They might know that, So YouTube is fine. Like, I have this podcast, Podcastic Audio, does have a YouTube version on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel because anybody with a Gmail account has a YouTube channel, So with Libsyn, the audio host that I use, one of their features they have is they will create like an audio video version of your podcast and throw it over to YouTube for you, like included in your thing. So I'll go over there. I mean, I get like no plays on that thing at all, but I'll go over. It's there. I mean, you can actually listen to my audio podcast on YouTube. Great. It's another place to put your show. YouTube is like the second largest search engine in the world, followed behind Google, which owns YouTube. So I guess it's the same thing. And so why not put it everywhere if you possibly can? So I would say try to get your content out as many places as possible. And then one of the cool things about video that I like is that you can take this little interview here, take little clips of it, and you can put it on all the social medias, Twitter, TikTok, all of them, and Instagram, whatever. You can use them as like a teaser or something visually, because all the social media platforms are like visual platforms. Yeah, they're all visual platforms. I think about it. So put something visually on those platforms, and that's where video, I think, really comes in. to help promote or, for your new episode and things like that. That's where I think video really outshines the audio. But the audio, cool thing about the audio is that, like you said, you really get deep into a conversation. You really feel like you're part of the conversation. You're connected with the host more. It's a deeper connection versus the video side of things. Some may argue with that, but that's the way I feel. I don't know.
No, I completely agree with you. I mean, there's been some really fascinating studies all around. I mean, we were chatting about this just before we hit record. There's been some really interesting studies all about the emotions that people feel when they are listening to something versus when they're watching something. And you can see all these like, oh, it's absolutely amazing things like heart rates and, like I said, emotions and different parts of the brain light up when they do different scans and things when people are just listening as opposed to watching the video. And I think it really shows that connection that people end up fostering really when they're listening, because it goes back to your point that you made at the beginning, because you've got to imagine so much in your mind. And yeah, I think there's a lot of emotion that words create that video and visuals don't necessarily. I don't know. I feel like I'm getting in a bit deep about psychology that I don't know enough about.
Yeah, I'm not a therapist. I play one on TV, but I think with audio too, as I was thinking about this too, is that like, if you listen to a really good piece of music, like done very well, not that you're like watching a band or a concert playing in front of you, but you're just listening, and all you have is the audio, and you have your amazing headphones or however you listen to your stuff, and it just sounds phenomenal. It takes you to another world. You just feel like you're just sucked away, and you just feel like you really like you're enjoying it so much. It's so great, and that's why I think music is so powerful. And I love audio, I love music and stuff like that. And I've always been, I wouldn't say an audiophile, but I always kind of had to have like the best or better sounding equipment than the average like crappy whatever system. Like on my vehicles, I've always had cars that had like better upgraded sound systems. I would upgrade the sound system. When movies had surround sound for the home consumer, dude, I was all over that. I got the surround sound set. I got surround sound in my house here, although Christine hates it. She hates it when I play surround sound, so I only play it when she's gone and stuff like that. Like I'll crank when she's not here, literally I'll crank music and play and do the dishes and stuff. I'll be playing music, not super loud. Like I don't think it's that loud, but she'll say it's loud, but I'll crank it up. And I'll in the garage, I set up a sound system out there where I can plug my phone in, listen to podcasts, listen to music and stuff out in the garage, or things of that sort. So I love being able to listen to things anywhere and everywhere. It's one of the first things I set up in the house was surround sound, was audio stuff, was the first thing I set up, and I just enjoy listening to music, enjoy listening to things.
It's an experience, isn't it? It's I think that's the beauty of audio, is that it's just this immersive experience, which, to your point, you can just take it anywhere, be it in the garage, in the kitchen, go for a walk, in the car. It's just this immersive experience that, because you've only got your mind to create the picture, you can literally go anywhere with it.
Yeah, and I think also with the YouTube, I don't know if you ever when you look in your YouTube stuff, your show goes directly to YouTube. Do you ever look at the duration rate of the listener, how long they listen? If you look at that stuff, it's kind of soul crushing when you look at it. Yes. Too, on YouTube. I have not really tinkered with it too much. I have, but I'm like, oh man. So I didn't want to look at that stuff, but I know you can look at that stuff with all your audio podcast stats. You can actually look and see with Apple, I think Spotify, I think Amazon, they have back doors where we can go in there and physically look and see how long a listener physically listens to your show. But going back to YouTube, if a YouTube video makes it 50% duration, they're like top tier. The thing about YouTube too, I love YouTube, but I hate YouTube at the same time. It's like, YouTube, they love keeping you on YouTube, right? So if you're watching something on YouTube, you'll look on the right column. If you're on a computer or something, you'll see all these other videos, things you never even subscribe to. They'll say, watch this, watch that. And next thing you know, you're clicking on this, clicking on that. Things you never subscribe to are being, force fed in your feed, because YouTube knows that you like cat videos. So we're going to feed you a bunch of cat videos, and then, maybe other animal videos. And then if you like those animal videos, we'll show you other videos. And next thing you know, an hour goes by. You're like, was I supposed to be doing something? I forgot. I was supposed to be washing the car, washing dishes. Next thing you know, I'm sitting, it's a time waste is what it is, really. And I think with the video on YouTube, you have to be quick because people are jumping from video to video so quickly that you'll notice those videos, they'll get right to the point, like right to it as quick as possible. And they're usually not super long. Like there are some videos that are long on there. I'm not saying they're not, but I think the sweet spot for YouTube videos has got to be like in the 10-minute, 15-minute range, maybe. I mean, maybe that's just me. I'm just thinking of the videos that I've watched all the way to the end. The quicker, the better. There's a guy on YouTube that I watch. He's pretty, I don't know if he's famous or what, but he's been on YouTube for a long time. He does movie reviews. And he was one of the earlier guys that did the quick jump cuts where when he does his editing, it's like jump, 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 jump. Each like sentence is a quick jump. And he was one of the first guys to do that. And he just it's a backdrop. It's like a canvas or something. And he shows clips of the movie. He does show things too. So it's not just him talking the entire time. He'll show clips of the movie and stuff and does these reviews. But it's very short. His videos are maybe like 5 to 7 minutes long at the most. And at the very end, he gives like his review or what he thinks of the movie. And he has this whole like scale system, what he thinks the movie is, like different rankings, and stuff like that. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll skip to the ranking to see what he thought of the movie. I don't hear all the details of the movie, just want to hear what he thought of it. So YouTube, it's very quick. It's very quick paced, and you have to kind of keep up with that. If you're just going to sit there and do an hour long recording on Zoom, and the first 30 minutes is you and your buddies thinking, I don't know, what do you want to talk about? I don't know what you want to talk about. I cannot imagine that show being very successful, at least on YouTube, even on audio too. I think the audio podcaster may listen longer. They may have put more duration in with listening to that stuff, or they skip. I know you can skip on YouTube also, but if you don't get to the point right away, I mean, God bless you. They're having a fun time, I guess. And if you're having fun, if all you're going to do is have fun, then congratulations, good job.
I think it goes back to what you were saying as well, as what are people doing when they're watching YouTube or listening to your podcast? If you're driving, you can't really be skipping to the next episode or whatever. I mean, when I'm in my car, it only lets me skip every 10 seconds or something.
Right,
I can't
yeah,
start
I think
scrolling through and
is it a 30-second clip skip, or is it like a 20? Yeah,
no, mine's 10 seconds.
Okay, yeah, maybe I don't know, whatever it is. I always, if I hear an ad on a podcast, I don't care what it is. If it smells like an ad, or I think, wait, is this an ad? Skip. And then if I go too far, I'll just get the skip back button, and then I'll go back and catch up if they said something or whatever, kind of thing. But I don't like advertising in a podcast, an audio podcast. I think the problem with that is that people confuse podcasting with radio. And radio advertising, when you're listening to the radio on the regular terrestrial radio and you're tending your car and you're listening to your favorite station, and then the commercial comes on or goes to commercial break for the 2 to 5 minutes or whatever it is, well, you're kind of stuck unless you go to a different channel. So you switch channels, go to another one. Maybe that's got a commercial too, that kind of thing, right? But with an audio podcast, if a commercial comes on, you could just hit the skip button. Skippity skip, and then you go straight to the content. So from an advertiser standpoint, I was kind of wonder, like, what is how do you make money if everybody's skipping your ads? I mean, I know some people don't, or they don't know you can do that. By the way, tip of the day, kids, you can skip these commercials. You don't have to listen to them. No one says you got to push play on those. So skip them, and then you can get to the content. You can get to more episodes quicker. And with my truck, I have Apple CarPlay. It's phenomenal, by the way. I love it because it shows all your iPhone's gadgets and all your icons right on the screen, even the skip button and all that stuff. So you can skip stuff, look at new episodes, skip, and it's great. I mean, that's what I do.
I love that so much. Just skip through the bits you don't want. Absolutely. But I think it goes back to that point, doesn't it? Is that we are on YouTube, it's just so much easier to skip away and find something else. Whereas on the podcast, you're much more, I don't know, I just feel like you're more invested when you're listening to the listening to the audio, which I guess then kind of leads me on to my next question. I would love to know if somebody is kind of thinking to themselves, right, how am I going to improve the audio quality for my podcast? What would your advice be to them?
Okay, that's a great question, because the podcasting audio basically started because if you knew all like the Zoom crap shows that came out in 2020, all
I
that
think that was like
junk.
my second episode that I did on this podcast is stop using Zoom to record.
Well, the Zoom's fine. It's just you have to have a microphone. I mean, people are doing it on
Yeah.
their laptops, their iPads or whatever, and they'll
Mm.
be holding it 5 feet from them and stuff and things like that. So, using junk equipment. Now, I mean, you don't have to spend $1 million on equipment. I mean, I don't have a ton of money invested. I mean, I have a little bit, not a ton. But one of the cool things about audio is that with proper editing and sound EQ, you can almost take any microphone and make it sound great, like really great. I've taken webcam audio and made it sound great. I've taken, cell phone audio and made it sound great. Well, I said, okay, good. I mean, great's strong. Great's a strong word, but like I made it sound good, to where I did an episode on Podtastic. I've been throwing out these like short little bonus episodes, and it's whatever's on my mind at the moment or something. And I did an episode a while back where I was in a hotel room, and I didn't plan on doing a podcast at all because I didn't bring any gear or nothing. And all I had was my MacBook Pro laptop. And with that, I'm like, I know it's got a microphone built in. I know it's got the stuff. I wonder if I can just do in a hotel room, right, which is not really sound treated or nothing. I wonder if I can just record a 5-minute like episode and see what I can do with the enhancement tools that I use, see what I can do to make this webcam audio sound the best I can. And I did a fairly decent job with it. In fact, somebody wrote in and they said, I didn't even know. If you didn't tell me that you were using webcam, I wouldn't even known. It sounded that great. Well, thanks. I mean, having had lots of different guests come in over the years on crap, you have to learn how to like make them sound the best you possibly can, because not every guest is going to come in with, the best gear. They're going to come in with whatever, even a cell phone, you're going to make that sound somewhat decent. So when it comes to getting good audio, a couple things really is basically get close to the microphone. Like I'm probably fairly close to the microphone. And the reason why, if I start pulling away, you might hear a little bit of a echo. I don't know how it sounds to you, but the closer you get to the microphone, that eliminates a lot of that reverb sound. That's one key thing. I think a lot of people, when they do their podcast, especially if they're using the Blue Yeti, I think you're using the Blue Yeti microphone, but they'll
don't knock my Blue Yeti. I love it.
They'll put the Blue Yeti like 5 feet from them, right? So it's kind of picking up all this room reverb, and room reverb is when the audio like hits something solid like the floor, the wall, whatever, and it kind of bounces back to the microphone. And the Blue Yeti microphone is I think it's what microphone version? Mine is a dynamic, so it is the other version. I can't think it's on my head, but I can't think. Anyways, it picks up a lot of audio. It picks up audio very well. The problem is that it picks up all the audio very well, including anything you hear around you, any echo bouncing and that kind of stuff. The microphones that I like to use are I have the Rode Pod mics, which are designed for vocal. They're designed for podcasting directly. In fact, it says podcasting microphone like right out of the box. So I said, well, that's got to be the one, right? So I get those. They're not very expensive. I got like 4 of them or 3 of them, and they plug right into the Rodecaster Pro, which I'm using, which literally there's a setting on here for different microphones. So I put it on the Rodecaster Pro microphone setting, so then it does all the magic for me. So it sounds great. And of course, even with that, I still take it and I'll still enhance it. So get close to the microphone is one. Make sure you use your microphone correctly. Set the gain level correctly. If possible, not always, if possible, try to listen live back to your audio. I know depending on your setup and gear. Like when we were doing it on the Chris Christine show early on, I heard this trick too, right? So, but I didn't have any mixers or nothing. So I just had the computer. So I plugged our USB microphones into the computer, plugged our headphones into the computer, right? And I had the computer tricked out to where we could hear it back to our headphones, but it had to process it all, and it was a solar computer, and how it worked, it was a slight delay. So we'd say something, there'd be just maybe a millisecond or a half second delay back to our headphones. What causes you to like slur your words because you're trying to catch up to what you're hearing. So you're like, whoa, when you're talking, which is no good. So we upgraded to a interface which had zero latency, which is great. The key is zero latency. And a lot of these cool microphones now, like I think the Blue Yeti, and I think a lot of them have headphone jacks right on them, which you can physically hear yourself like live in real time with no delay. When you hear that delay, it throws you off. When you go without a delay, like I'm right now, oh my gosh, it's sweet sound. I can tell you, it sounds amazing. But making sure that if you can monitor your own audio live as you record it, you can hear that like, okay, I'm hearing a buzzing or I'm hearing a chirping from outside or it doesn't sound right. Or you can kind of as you start to hear yourself, you become more self-aware of what you sound like live as you're doing it. So you can make adjustments. Like if I noticed that I was sitting back at the couch back there and I was talking to this microphone way over here, I could physically hear there's obviously a difference. Now, if I wasn't listening, I wouldn't even know. Could I be talking like I'm talking normally, and whatever. And then you get your audio track. You're like, whoa, why does it sound like I'm in a cave? What do I do? So if you can do that, that'll help out quite a bit. And there's lots of different tools out there you can use to enhance your audio. Trust me, I use them. There's ones that can cost a lot of money. If you go into the plugin universe when it comes to audio plugins for your audio software, there's some that cost, I don't know, there's $1,000, pretty close for just a program that works with your audio software to make your audio sound amazing. Now, for the most of the audio consumers that listen to podcasts, I think it just has to be good enough, better than that echo chamber, really. And I think you'll be just fine. Oh, and also to bring the volume up a little bit too. Some shows release their audio a lot lower, and I don't know if they just don't know they can bring it up. I just don't know, or maybe they're worried about the hiss that you might get if you bring your audio up too high. You get that hiss level, brings it up too. But don't worry, you can fix that too in your audio editor. You can take that out before you bring it up. Just little tricks you learn along the way. Like all the stuff I ever done, I never went to engineering school. I never went to audio school. I never went to that stuff. It was all like trial and error. Like, oh, let me try this little trick. Oh, let me try that little trick. Oh, maybe this will work. Or maybe, I heard someone says, try that tool. Let me try that and see if it worked. That's when you came on my show and I discovered Clean Feed because I was doing a Google search on ways to do remote interviews. We tried the Zoom thing. And we're like, it doesn't sound quite right. I don't know what we're doing. It doesn't sound right, And so I just tried it. It was free. We did a few test runs with it. And I was like, wow, it sounds like we're in the same room, even though we're not in the same room. It sounds that way. I'm looking at the wave files. I'm looking at them and I'm hearing them. And I'm like, it sounds pretty darn good. So I said, I think we're on to something, So that's kind of how I evolved with that,
I love that. That's such actionable tips. And what I love about those tips and advice as well is that it's simple, but everybody can action that. Everyone can think about how are they sitting with their microphone, thinking about their, wearing headphones, thinking about their environment. It's so actionable. And like you said, you don't need to be spending thousands of dollars at all, which I think is something that people get really, really caught up in sometimes. Like, oh, I need to have this top microphone, this top set of headphones, whatever it is. But actually, I'm a big fan of saying that, you can have the most expensive equipment going. If you don't know how to use it, then you might as well be using your webcam audio like like your example there.
Yeah. And also too, like just because you have, $10,000 in equipment does not guarantee your show is going to be successful. It doesn't guarantee any of that. You still have to have engaging content. You have to have a reason why you're podcasting. You have to have a reason why your listeners are going to come to your podcast in the first place. You have to deliver them something valuable. It can't just be merely, hey, I'm talking to so-and-so just because. Why? Why do I care you're talking to so-and-so? I mean, what does so-and-so do for me? I know there's a lot of shows out there. I was just listening to a podcast last night. In fact, I sent that episode out to a few guys. I sent it out to somebody who actually does interview-only shows, and he lives and dies by the nature of the guest, like how big the guest is. And he's always trying to catch the bigger guest, it's guest. And I suggest doing more solo shows, but he'll never listen to me. But I found another podcaster that also, said, yeah, stop doing interview shows and do more solo shows. Solo shows are more valuable. They come for you, and maybe he feels like he's not important. Maybe he feels like he has nothing to really say. So he feels like he brings a guest on for them to say. But then again, it's like, whose show is it? Is it your show or is it their show? You know what I'm saying?
So true.
So I suggest doing more solo shows if you can. Guest interviews are fun. I love guest interviews. They're great. I've done a bunch. We do a bunch on the Chris and Christine show. We do a mixture of both. Like, we'll do a guest interview, but it's not only the guest interview. The whole show is not guest interview. It's like a good 15, 20 minutes of us talking about stuff we want to talk about. And then we'll bring the guest in, and then we'll wrap it up like that guest was great, so on and so forth. Here's our website. Enjoy. See you next time. So you can, with podcasting, you can do pretty much anything you want to do. There's different formats. Except there's a guest format, there's a solo format, there's the roundtable format. There's the reviews. I mean, there's all kinds of different things you can do with podcasting, and I think it's great. And I say, anybody that's going to say, go ahead and do it. Just remember that even with video, it gets video and audio too. Is that you want your audio to sound not like, it doesn't have to be like NPR or whatever the best of the best is. It's not to be that. It just has to be better than the guy in the walkie-talkie. Out in the field, talking, whatever, like, it has to be better than that nonsense. And it has to be a reason why your listener comes to your show. What is it? What is it in it for them? I know why you're doing it, because you're talking to big so-and-so, big shot smarty pants on your Zoom chat. Yeah, I know that's why you're doing it. But why am I the listener? Why am I here? What am I here for?
Yeah, it's always thinking about what is that, why, and what are you serving, and who are you serving, and how are you meeting that need, isn't it? But oh my gosh, so much goodness in this episode. I've had so much fun. Thank you so much. But before we sign off, please remind everybody where we can catch up with you and listen to your podcast as well, because your podcast is amazing, and I would suggest everybody goes and listens to it.
Oh, thank you. Bring a tear in my eye. You say that. It's so sweet. I love people say they love my podcast. It's great. Even though I'm not one to be all flashy dashy and say like, hey, I'm the best. But I appreciate everybody who listens and stuff. And I want to say thank you for listening. You can find out everything you want to know at podtasticaudio.com. Very simple. podtasticaudio.com. So
amazing. And that is going to be linked down in the show notes as well. So please, everybody, make sure that you check that link out and listen to Chris's episodes, because they are well worth your while. Otherwise, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. I have had a blast chatting with you. I'm also actually going to link, I've just thought I need to link down in the show notes as well when I was on you invited me on to come onto your podcast as well. So we'll link that episode down as well. Have a listen to that. But otherwise, Chris, like I said, thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure hosting you today.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been a blast. Thank you for having me, inviting me all the way over here from San Diego. Not so much sunny San Diego.
Well, in my mind, it's sunny because, like I said, it's California. So for me as a Brit, it is always sunny over there.
It is most of the time.
Brilliant. Well, you have a great day and we'll chat soon.
All right. Thank you.